say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Started studying connection in first grade at Abbott Elementary.
About 9 years ago, my sister got a match through Big Brothers Big Sisters, and it was thanks to my grandparents.
Well, my cousin said it was fun that the teachers or the tutors helped us with a lot of our stuff that we needed to finish. So I thought that was neat, so that I could learn more stuff and get more help on my homework.
At first, I thought it was kind of weird, going with somebody that you didn't even know, having them take you places around. And but then she came back and she kept saying how she got to go to movies and do all this other fun stuff. And then I got really jealous, so I wanted to make sure that I got in on it.
To have the same tutor was comfortable, because if I would have had a different one every time I went, I wouldn't have felt comfortable, because I wouldn't know how they would teach me or stuff like that.
Having Brad specifically as a big brother, he knows so much. I'm still amazed by all the advice that he can give me and how good it is, especially for me not having gone through it yet.
Study Connection has helped me to be today in National Junior Honor Society, because they helped me that you have to help the community and stuff like that. And it's just it was just great that I went to Study Connection, because now now I'm getting in a good future where I know how it feels to be in stuff that are important and helping the community and stuff like that.
I first met Don Wolf at the gourmet dinner that I was invited to speak at, and when I met him, he gave me a card on it, and it had 4 points to live a happy life. And I thought, no one's ever really given me something like that. I've gotten some business cards and stuff oh, well, if you need any information, contact me, but it was all his information was already there, just in those 4 points.
I want to thank Don Wolf for creating Study Connection, because he's helped a lot of students to know that they can do many things and not just stop where they think they should, because they should keep going.
I would definitely want to thank Don for his involvement, just because it's such a great program. Personally, it's life-changing, and I know that they're still helping thousands of other kids.
I think now that I've been through Study Connection, it's going to help me in my future, because now that I think more about education than I used to, because now I focus on the main test, to study hard, and Study Connection helped me with that, about studying.
it's such a commendable thing. Like, it's definitely something that I even want to do if I have the capabilities in the future. So.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us in our salute to the 2013 Sachem Award recipient, Don Wolf. Please welcome Do It Best Corp. President Emeritus, Mike McClelland.
Good afternoon. Speaking for all of the present and former Do It Best staff, for Don and Jenny's family, and for the hundreds of friends that Don has in the community here, I want to thank you so much for taking your time from what I'm sure is a busy schedule at a very busy time of the year to be here to honor Don. My name is Mike McClelland. I was an employee of HWI Do It Best for almost 30 years. I worked daily with Don for about 20 years, and I've known him now for almost 40 years. I've been asked to share a few thoughts with you about Don, which I look forward to doing in a few moments, but I would first like to introduce some very important individuals. First of all, the governor of the state of Indiana, Mike Pence. I can't thank you enough for being with us. Would you stand, please, and let everyone acknowledge. Governor Pence has been a friend of Do It Best Corp. In Northeast Indiana for as long as I can remember. As most of you know, he was a member of the House of Representatives, in a very short period of time became not only a member of the House, but one of the most influential members of Congress in a very short period of time, and most recently was elected governor and is already known as one of the key state chief executives in the United States. The second very important person that I want to introduce today is Jenny Wolf, Don's wife. Don's wife for, well, let's just say for a lot of years. Vicki and I both agree that Jenny is one of the kindest, most considerate, most intelligent, most family-oriented and dedicated people that we've ever known. And I can assure you, and I think he would say it louder than I will, there is no way that Don would have accomplished all that he did without this lifetime partner. A third very important person is Maxine Van Horn, and Maxine is sitting over here. As many of you know, Don's mother and father were ill and died when Don was very young, and there's no one who deserves more credit for raising Don than Maxine in his formative years. Not only that, but to keep an eye on him and later to keep an eye on all of us at HWI, she was an employee for 27 years. And if anything went wrong, Maxine knew about it pretty quickly. Next, I would like to introduce Don's brother, Ned, and his wife, Katie. I personally value Ned's friendship as much as I do Don's. Ned was an employee of HWI Do It Best for 47 years. And for the last 17 years was vice president of hardware purchasing, where he created national vendor programs with companies like Black & Decker, Stanley Tool, Rubbermaid, and hundreds of others. And next, again, very important people, Don's children and Jenny's children. First of all, son Rick and his wife Andrea and their son Hayden. Would you raise your hand, stand up, please? Next is daughter Becky Jackway and her husband Al. Thank you. Daughter Donna Myers and husband Mickey. Thank you, Mickey. And daughter Lisa Miller and her husband Bruce and their daughter Annika. Thank you very much. Also joining us today is Ned and Katie's son Scott and his wife Dawn, down at this end. Maxine's sons, David, Richard, and John Van Horn. Jenny's sister, Rita Walters. Where's Rita? Thank you, Rita. And niece, Anna Lee Wildbaker. Thank you. One last very important person I would like to introduce today. I'm pretty sure that I met Bob Taylor 30 years ago this year. We were at a hardware convention at McCormick Place in Chicago. And at that convention, there were about 75,000 people. But I'll never forget that one person stuck out in my mind after attending that convention. I was instantly impressed with Bob Taylor, and that's continued to grow every day over the last 30 years. And Bob, I want to thank you for everything you've done for Do It Best, for this community, and appreciate both you and Marion be a very important part of it. Thank you. Now, I've been asked to share a couple of comments regarding what do I think of Don as a corporate leader, and secondly, what do I think of him and what do I think others who have known him personally think of what he's done over the years. Best way to answer that is to say this. We're 5 days from Christmas, and I would imagine most of you in this room have recently seen or will in the next couple of days the old movie, It's a Wonderful Life. You remember it's the story of George Bailey, the local banker, who through his guardian angel saw what Bedford Falls would have been had he never been born. Well, I've watched that movie several times through the years, and every once in a while when I'm watching it, I've thought, you know, I wonder what Fort Wayne would have been like and what the hardware industry throughout the entire country would have been like if there hadn't been a Don Wolf. Well, first of all, I can assure you, if that would have happened, I'm pretty sure there wouldn't be a Do It Best Corp today in Fort Wayne. 56 years ago, Don became the president of HWI. At that time, there were about 400 hardware distributors in America. In fact, there were 3 or 4 of them right here in Fort Wayne. Today, of that more than 400, there are about 35. It's been only through Don's ability, his dedication to a strong financial foundation, his ideas, and his execution that our company not only exists today, but survives and will prosper into the future. So he's been a very important part of the careers and the opportunities of many of us. In addition to that, now listen to this, more than 4,000 hardware and building material stores throughout the entire country and in more than 50 countries around the world are a part of Do It Best today and are able to compete with everyone from other independents all the way up to the big boxes in their community, and it would not be here if it were not for Don Wolf. In addition, the thousands of people in this community that have benefited through the Study Connection, a strong Big Brothers Big Sisters, a very strong United Way, the Solomon Farm, and many, many more are here because there was and is a Don Wolf. A couple of other thoughts about Don. A few of you in this room are old enough to remember the late 70s, early 80s. Remember when we were going through skyrocketing inflation? Well, at that time, and we still do, we had a pension plan, a defined benefit program at HWI, which simply said if you retired, you get this much a month for the rest of your life. Well, Don noticed among the thousands of other problems we were facing with that inflationary period that those people who had already retired were getting that fixed amount no matter what happened to inflation. Totally on his own, without anyone asking him to, he went to the board of directors and he said, we need to raise this monthly benefit for these people. And I know that he did that on at least 2 occasions. No one asked him to do it. No one told him to do it. He did it because he felt it was the right thing to do. And by the way, throughout the entire time of that pension program, every year it has been fully 100% funded, unlike a lot of others that I'm sure you're aware of. On a personal note, and I like telling this story, in 1987, Vicki and I were building our first house. And to control expenses, we tried to do all the work that we could ourselves. Well, as luck would have it, it just became time to do all the interior painting, and I had to go off with our purchasing department to Korea, Taiwan, and Hong Kong for 17 days, leaving Vicki and a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old son behind to do all the painting. Little did I know in those days before cell phones that on several occasions, after work, after dinner, Don came over and helped paint the house. Had I known that, I would have tried to figure out how to stay another week so that I wouldn't have had to do the woodwork too. Final comment. As many of you know, after I retired from Do It Best, Vicki and I moved to the Carolinas, and I had the opportunity to teach a business strategy class to senior level business students at Clemson University. And typically in a semester, the class will meet 28 times. You have the first class, you have the midterm final, and you have the final. If you back those out, there's 25 class sessions. I would start each one of those 25 class sessions with what I called, quote, the top 25 most important things I've learned in 30 years of business. 2 of those quotes came from Jack Welch. 2 of them came from Peter Drucker. 1 came from Warren Buffett, 1 from Yogi Berra, and 7 from Don Wolf. Typically, by the end of the semester, whenever I would make a profound statement, which of course wasn't very often, but whenever I did, inevitably there'd be a student in the back who would say, "Oh, is that another Don Wolfism?" So the bottom line right now, there are hundreds of young business people in the Carolinas, in the Southeast, and in fact throughout the entire United States. They've never met Don, but they know a lot about him, and their start in the business world has been made a little bit easier because of him. So, as most of you know, or many of you know, Indiana is a state of 6.5 million people. Not surprising to me, therefore, Don is much more than 1 in a million. He's 1 in 6.5 million. And I can assure you that Father Theodore Hesburgh, John Wooden, and another Fort Wayne favorite son, Ian Rowland, are very proud to have him become a part of this very exclusive club. And those of us who have known him for a long time know that he deserves it. And we're very happy and proud of him as well. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Jenny, for everything you have done for this community, for our industry, for a long, long time. Thank you very much. And now it's my pleasure to introduce one more very, very important person, the Executive Director of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northeast Indiana, Josette Ryder. Josette, please come on up.
So first of all, I do want to thank Bob Taylor for allowing me to speak today, because he knew and knows how important Don is to Big Brothers Big Sisters and to me personally. I also want to thank the whole Do It Best team, Randy and Laura Frederick. You guys are amazing, and we've learned a lot from you on how to run events. So I've already asked them to help with gourmet dinner this year, just FYI. So Don Wolfisms, it's true. There are so many. Governor, I just want you to pay attention. Don does have a cell phone, and he has a number in Florida. I personally call it the bat phone, and I only use it now and then when I need to, because he has great advice. And some of the best advice of a Don Wolfism is when I first started, and I actually had met Bob and Mike, and Don was there. It was my first big speaking engagement. I was very nervous, and Don came up to me afterwards and said, "You did a great job." I said, "I don't remember anything I said, so thank you." He said, "I was really nervous," and he said, "Well, you know, you don't want to lose that. You don't want to ever not be nervous." And I'm like, "Yeah, I do. I really do." He said, "No, it's not about having butterflies. It's making sure they fly in the right formation." So, Governor, I know you give speeches, and when that happens, you need some advice. That's a great cell phone to kind of have. So when I decided what I would talk about, because I only have a few minutes, is whenever I've thought about Don over the years and I've gotten to know him, we share a lot in common. But his childhood, and Maxine, everything you did, and Ed and George, and all the stories he would tell me, and Ginny, I always would say, and I've said this to my little sister, God builds you for his purpose. God builds you through experiences for your purpose. And Don is one of those unique people who has had multiple purposes, and all the experiences, he has used to help the community. So he did have a lot of loss as a child, but he had this great family that clung to him and helped him, and he clung to them. And he would always tell me, I was really poor, and so I'd have to work the farm and go to school, and I wasn't a great student, and sometimes I fell asleep. Then I'd have to go work at a garage, get home late. But he, knew how to wrench on a car. I know what that means. I'm a farm girl, so he knew how to, fix an engine. So when he graduated from high school, there was a job opening at a hardware wholesale store. And he said, well, some of my friends went down to apply for that job. And Don, he says, they were scraping the bottom of the barrel because they picked me because I knew how to work on an engine, and they had a truck that always would break down. So they picked him. Well, that became Do It Best. But as Don does with everything, he brings success and he brings other people along with him. 6 years ago, I got a phone call from a retired maintenance guy from one of the warehouses. And he made an anonymous contribution. I don't think you know this, Don. And he said to me, I retired a millionaire because of Don Wolf and Do It Best. I barely graduated high school, but because of Don Wolf and profit sharing and Do It Best, my kids all went to college. And he believes in helping kids, and I want to make this donation in his name, right? So God builds you for his purpose. He knew how to wrench on a car, so he got a job. He knew how to build a Do It Best. He loves hardware. He loves fixing things. So he helped bring everybody along with him. And all that wisdom and that grace and all that business savvy he used in this later part of his life to help organizations like mine. He is one of my mentors and has helped me in everything that I do at Big Brothers Big Sisters. And Governor, I'd like to say this. Last year in Indiana, 7,500 children across the state of Indiana had one-to-one mentors of their own. Almost 45% are affected by some family member incarcerated, 24% by a parent. 80% have an income below $25,000. This is in a time in our community where two-parent homes don't even spend one-on-one time with children. And we have high-risk children getting one-on-one time. Much of what Indiana is doing and the country is doing is because of Don's influence with the Lilly Grant 40 years ago. Annie E. Casey will value those dollars. The average last year was about 720,000 hours spent one-on-one with a child. That's almost $11 million in direct one-on-one time with children. It's just a Do It Best model. Keep investing, keep giving back, and you can gain a lot of rewards of people coming together. It really is a Do It Best model. That's why it's such a great connection. So I'm going to end with this. Last year, I asked two men the same question. One was in March. I was sitting with Don and Jenny in Florida, and I love his stories. And I said, when you're eating that cheese sandwich, did you ever think you would have a place in Florida? Did you ever think you'd meet all these people? Did you ever think? And everybody that knows Don knows he does this. No. Jenny giggled, no. In September of this last year, I was getting ready and planning the Brad Miller event with Brad Miller. Many of you know who that is, but I'll tell you, he's a retired NBA All-Star who has a second career. He's a multimillionaire and he owns properties all over the country. But he also is a former little brother from this program. And I said to Brad, did you ever think you'd have a place in Vegas, in Sacramento, in Texas, all these places? And just like Don, if you know Brad, he's an introvert. He giggles. Are you kidding? No. I told him, I laughed, and I said, Don told me the same thing back in March. And he said, but that's why I do it, because he helps us raise a lot of money, Brad does. I said, what do you mean? He said, the same reason why he probably helped start this organization for these boys is the same reason I do it, because I wouldn't have done any of it without my big. And I hope that you keep asking that questions of these guys, these boys, because they'll have the same story. So I tell you all that because you have made a huge impact on our community and on me personally. And I'm really excited to introduce to you the program director of the Study Connection, Sharon Callender, because she has much more to share.
Good afternoon. It's such an honor to be here, and of course I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Don. If there's anything that I have learned about Don Wolf in the years that I have known him and the 17 years that I have been a part of Study Connection is that he is a wise man. Wise men do not rely on luck or chance or even fate. They use knowledge and expertise and good judgment. Wise men listen and they offer advice, they set the wheels in motion, put the pieces in place, and then they're there to help with the maintenance to get things going. And that's what Don has done with Study Connection. We've been here for 25 years, and I know we'll be here for 25 more, Don. What's interesting about Study Connection is there was no blueprint or national program. It was simply Don's desire to create a program that would help students who needed extra academic assistance, but could also benefit from that one-to-one time with a positive adult role model. So he approached Bill Anthus, the superintendent of Fort Wayne Community Schools, with this idea. And the idea was very well received, but Dr. Anthus indicated that unfortunately the district just didn't have money for that kind of program. And I give Don credit. He didn't just walk away. He said, okay. And so he went out to the community and he asked the Follinger Foundation, Waterfield Mortgage, Journal-Gazette, and several other local businesses for money to start a 3-year pilot program. Now, Don very easily could have gone back and used money from HWI to get the program in motion. But he wisely got these other people involved because he knew if he had broader support, it would gain sustainability. But that money did come with a few strings. What he did was he said, I have money here for a 3-year pilot program, and at the end of that 3 years, if the program's successful, then the school district needs to take it over, which it has done. So once the district said yes and the staff was hired, Don offered his advice and his expertise. Now, Don knows business, but not education. So being wise, he put Mike McClellan in charge of an advisory council because Mike knew both business and education. And that was a very wise decision because Mike led the program from infancy so that it could take root. In fact, he was the one who named it Study Connection. Don was always on the sidelines offering his wisdom. And so, I'm so sorry, I'm so nervous. When Bill Anthus told Don, he said, I want this to be a pull-out program. Don said, that's fine. He said, we'll make it an after-school program. But the one thing he wanted, he told Connie Dickey, was you have to have a breakfast every fall. And at that breakfast, you let people know the success you had the previous year and what your goals are for the following year. And we've done that. And we adhered to a very strict hour in, hour out, because Don wisely told us that business people are busy people. The other thing that Don did that really made the program stand out was he encouraged the use of volunteers in leadership roles, not unlike the co-op model of Do It Best. So having that, it's created a lot of buy-in from our volunteers and a very strong support base. And then Don stood back and he watched the program take root. He provided that basic tenet, one child, one tutor, 1 hour a week. But he never put that program in a box. So when Essex approached us and said, we'd love to have the kids come to business, is there a way we could transport the kids and have them go to business for their tutoring? Don never said, oh, whoa, 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 I didn't envision the program like that. He wanted those relationships to take place, and so he let the program take its course. And the program has changed and grown because of this flexibility. And I will tell you that there is no 2 Study Connection sites that operate exactly the same. We'll have one where the students walk in and they'll take their snacks, and then we'll have others where the students are given their snacks once they're seated. Some meet in cafeterias, some meet in boardrooms. Some students show up at the business in a big yellow Fort Wayne Community School school bus, and others show up in a little white 14-passenger vehicle marked Study Connection. But I promise you this, At every single site, you will see children and adults making a connection over math, spelling, reading, and it works. It works because Don Wolf is a very wise man. Thank you, Don. I can't imagine anyone that deserves this award better than you. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Do It Best Corp President and CEO, Bob Taylor.
Thank you all. Thank you for taking time out of your schedules to join us today for what is just a very, very special event. Josette and Sharon did such a great job, and I just want to share with you all that we decided that Do It Best Corp would cover the cost of the banquet today. So all the tickets that you all bought, some of you who sent in a little extra money along with it, that's being split between Study Connection and Big Brothers Big Sisters. So we'll have that for them afterwards. To present this year's Indiana Sachem Award, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce a gentleman who has worked so tirelessly on behalf of Hoosiers, both on Capitol Hill in D.C. And now back here at home to move this state forward. He's been a champion of economic development, moving this state forward to a position now that ranks in the top 5 in the country as business-friendly states, #1 in the Midwest, and he's not stopping. Already he has plans to raise the bar higher in the year ahead to do even better in that effort, or as we say at Do It Best Corp, to continue making the best even better. But he's equally a champion of the people here, Hoosiers in the state, and raising up their accomplishments as an example for others. And there's no higher example of that than the award he's here to present today. So I hope you join me in a warm welcome for Indiana's CEO, our friend, Governor Mike Pence.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bob. Thank you for your extraordinary corporate and civic leadership. I have to tell you, when I pulled Bob aside at an economic development meeting, he serves on the board of the Economic Development Corporation of Indiana, and I said, Bob, I've made my decision about the Sachem Award. And I told him who my choice was, and he said to me, I think we'd probably get a few people together up in Fort Wayne. Can you give Bob Taylor a round of applause and Do It Best? This is just a great, great example of why this is a great company and a great community. I am honored to be with all of you today and grateful to have the opportunity to pay a debt of gratitude and a debt of honor to an individual who needs very little introduction. To anyone who has taken the time in this incredibly busy holiday season to pay tribute to this good man and this good family. I am reminded, though, in this moment, Don, about a story I heard about a previous Indiana governor. And as the story goes, the governor and the first lady were speeding down the highway in the back seat of their vehicle, and they pulled into a gas station in need of gas. And as the story goes, the gas station attendant came out kind of covered with grease, and on seeing the attendant, the first lady jumped out of the car, ran up to him, threw her arms around him, kissed him on the cheek. There was laughing, there was hugging as the governor looked from the back seat kind of nervously. And then another kiss, another hug, and goodbye and wave, and she climbed in the vehicle after they'd been gassed up, and the car sped off, and the governor looked at the first lady and said, so, what was that all about? And she said, oh, I thought you recognized him. That was Bob. Bob, who I dated in high school. Bob, who I almost married Bob. The governor with kind of a smug, self-satisfied look said, oh, Bob. First lady said, "What do you mean by that?" And he said, "Well, you know, I was just thinking, I mean, what if you'd have married Bob?" First lady said, without missing a beat, "If I married Bob, he'd be governor." We're here to honor a man. But would you mind getting on your feet and saying thank you to Jenny? The wind underneath his wings. Jenny Wolf, thank you. Thank you for all you meant to this day. We make these decisions and we extend these accolades, but we know that we extend them to a family. And so it's a particular joy to me to be able to share this moment, not only with our honoree and Jenny, but also with Rick and Becky and Donna and Lisa, and with Ned and Maxine who are here. Thank you so much for allowing us to share this moment. And to hear the tributes that have already been offered, I feel very humbled and very inadequate. To Josette and Sharon, thank you for your wonderful and powerful words. And Mike McQuillan, I need that list. Give these three presenters another round of applause. Those were just incredible tributes. And I do wish to acknowledge the presence of Senator Tom Weiss, Senator Dennis Cruz, the privilege of working with individuals like these. One of whom is going to be wrapping up a storied career in public life is a great privilege. We have the best state legislature in America, and we have two great examples in Senator Tom Weiss and Senator Dennis Cruz, who are here. Thank you for being here, men. And lastly, I just came. I just came from the. Don would approve of this, a Fort Wayne Boys and Girls Club, where we talked about the importance of family. And the importance of focusing policies on strengthening families and children. And Joe Jordan told me he was going to leave that venue, which was a full house, and come here because he's one of the people that feels indebted to this good man and this good community. And Joe, I thank you for being here as well. But let me say it is a great, great joy for me. The old book says, if you owe debts, pay debts. If honor, then honor. If respect, then respect. And the Sachem Award, which was established in 1970 by Governor Edgar Whitcomb, is an effort on the part of the people of Indiana once every year, once in 6.5 million, to identify that individual in business, industry, publishing, banking, law, who has made a unique contribution to the life of their community and of their state. Because by virtue of their industry and by virtue of their judgment and by virtue of their example. Governor Whitcomb established what came to be known as the Sachem Project. And the organization essentially, after a few honorees were named and an organization formed, dissolved in 1989. Then in 2005, Governor Whitcomb came up to the State House and visited my predecessor to acquaint him with the concept and give him custody of the remaining Sachem funds and materials. And Governor Daniels didn't waste any time at all reinstating the Sachem Award, which underscores the importance of achievement and moral example. Since 2005, as has been mentioned, names like John Wooden, Reverend Theodore Hesburgh, Bill and Gloria Gaither, Carl Erskine, Bill Cook, and our own Ian Rowland here in Fort Wayne have been the recipients of this extraordinarily prestigious award. Would you mind standing, Ian, and let us give you another round of applause for your example and your leadership. And today we're going to add to that roll. And it is my high honor to announce today that my choice on behalf of all the people of Indiana to be the 2013 recipient of the Indiana Sachem Award is Don Wolf. Throughout his life, Don has focused, as we've heard here today, with eloquent and passionate words. He's focused on improving the lives of those in his enterprise and those in his community. As I've said, anytime I've referred to him, he's just a distinctly Hoosier man, putting others first. We all heard about his incredible leadership. After 20 years at Hardware Wholesalers Incorporated, now Do It Best Corporation, he was appointed Chief Executive Officer. As CEO, sales grew remarkably from $35 million in 1967 and one distribution center serving 12 states to $1.25 billion in 1992, with 6 distribution centers serving the continental United States and several foreign countries. The last 20 years, Hardware Wholesalers and Do It Best Corporation, better understood as average 51.5% return on investment before tax, with most years no long or short-term debt at all. That is an incredible American enterprise success story, and Don Wolf poured the foundations. But it's more than his accomplishments in the workplace which bear upon this decision. It also is his leadership in the community that make Don worthy of Indiana's highest honor. His character, his selfless and generous nature, his humility that's been so eloquently described here today is what the Sachem Award is really at its very core all about. Co-founder and first president of Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Greater Fort Wayne, we heard the testimonies today of his impact there, his impact on study connection. It was striking for me to see on the big screen today, since 1972, 18,000 area youth, supported by 22,000 local volunteers. That is a legacy of changed lives that's been driven out of the generous heart of this good man. Don said to me when Karen and I had the opportunity to visit Big Brothers and Big Sisters earlier this year, I said, Don, this is a great legacy. This is considered to be one of the premier programs in the world, if not in the United States. And Don looked at me and shuffled his feet and looked at the ground, and I'll never forget him saying, he said, Mike, I figured there were a lot of people out there that had a lot more money than me, but I knew a lot of people. He said, I figured I'd just spend my time and go find those people and make a difference. And boy, Don, you sure have. In addition to the award that he'll receive today, he's earned the Pathfinder Award for his service to youth by Indiana Youth Links, 1991. The Top Service Award for Big Brothers and Big Sisters of America back in 1994. Named Citizen of the Year by the local paper in 1991. Business Leader of the Year. Almost too many to recount. It is truly an extraordinary legacy of leadership and generosity that we acknowledge today. And ultimately, it does come from a servant's heart. I'm someone who has long aspired to live up in my life to the principles of servant leadership. Here in this season that my family and I will celebrate and cherish with not only presence but with worship. I am ever challenged and profoundly inspired by him who came not to be served, but to serve. Servant leadership at its very core is driven by that principle. And I truly believe that there's probably no better time of the year for us to reflect on someone who has, throughout his life, lived out that principle, who's known that it's better to give than to receive. And as we extend this 2013 Sachem Award to Fort Wayne's own Don Wolf, may each of us be challenged in this day and in this place to leave here with those Don Wolfisms and that Don Wolf example enshrined in our hearts to go and do likewise in our community and in our state as he has done throughout his life. Thank you all very much for joining us to honor this good man and this Sachem Award recipient, Don Wolf. Hand this through and then get off the stage.
Well, you know something? If I were working, this would be a good time to ask for a raise. Couldn't go wrong. Well, I want to thank the governor and all the speakers this morning and all of you for coming, and especially Ian Rowland. You know, Ian Rowland has been one of my heroes for many years because he's done so much for the community, and not just 1 year, but year after year after year. He and his wife, Mimi couldn't be here today, but I'd like to ask for another great round of applause for Ian Rowland because this is a super job. Super job. Super job. There's another person that was a hero to my life. That was Don Eckridge. Many of you don't remember Don Eckridge. Don was the president of Eckridge Food, and he came to see me back about 1968. I'd just taken over HWI shortly before that, or now called Do It Best. But anyhow, he said he came, and that was like having God coming to see you because he was the Ian Rowland of that day, and here we were, just a little company. And he said, Don, you folks aren't doing a very good job with United Way. And he said, you and I have been really lucky in life, really lucky. He said, look at me. My grandfather started a business and he was president. My father was president, now I'm president. How lucky can I be? And he said, look at you. He said, somewhere along, I know your folks died when you were young, but somewhere along the line you had sisters or brothers or school teachers that gave you direction in life and gave you encouragement. Well, I had all of that. And he said, look what you've accomplished. You're lucky too. And he said, all of us that are lucky in life have to pass it along because not everybody's born with people who give them, for example, guidance and encouragement. Not everybody has that. And yet almost everybody has a chance to do it, but we need to help them. And after he left, I thought a little bit about it, and I thought primarily I thought that anybody that worked hard could be successful. And certainly you have to work hard to be successful. I never thought about the importance of the start in the first place, of that, those formative years where you learn and think, and people encourage you to do those kinds of things. And so we started at that time to spend a lot more time developing community programs, and the employees got involved. We started Study Connect, our Big Brother, and then Study Connection, because it all went back to that same thing that Don Eckridge said, help others. You know, we had a dealer in one of our big customers in Cincinnati who used to say, God's been good. I got to pass it along. And that's kind of what this is all about and what our whole lives are all about. Now we talked about Jenny a little bit ago. I really had a tremendous support. Jenny and I have been married 64 years. And she's got a mate. I'm still a work in progress because you ladies will understand that, but I began to put the towel back up in the rack a little better after I use it. I'm learning. But she's in her own right. She did a lot of volunteer work at Parkview Hospital for many years. She was head of the White Cross there and actually on the Parkview board for a few years. So she's done a good job. And I've got a wonderful family out here. These tables and this table, the brothers and the sisters and our children and my sister's children and my brother's children. We have my one brother's not alive anymore. He died a few years back. His wife and Wilma, both of them died. Wonderful people. Annalie's here today to represent that part of the family. And so we've had a lot of situations. Maxine's husband, Bill, died a few years back, and everybody put things back in the community. We kind of learned that from our parents, who during the Depression times would go up and down the road and try to help the neighbors. You know, I'm also very proud of Mike McClellan and Bob Taylor. They both followed me, Mike first and Bob. And they've taken it to a whole new level. Bob has taken it to a whole new level of getting employees involved. A very large percentage of the couple thousand employees we have now all across the United States, our distribution centers, in every city we're in, we probably are the leader in supporting United Way and getting involved in commercial programs. It's the point now where I'm going to have to set up a little budget because so many employees come to me and want me to be a part of this 5-mile race to raise money for something. I'm too well known, so I've got to start budgeting for all of that. But I'm very proud of that. And I'd like to kind of leave you with a really great story. This young lady failed the 7th grade. and she felt depressed. Her friends are moving on and wondered why she's sitting back. The new seventh graders coming in, they felt, who's this old person, should have been out of here. And you know something? The typical child that has problems, any kind of problem in elementary school, will probably not finish high school. And you know what that means? That means a lifetime of dead-end jobs. It means every year, $10,000 of different wages. That's a national figure, $10,000 difference between a high school employee, a graduate, or a dropout. So that young lady didn't have much to look forward to. But she did in this respect. Bob Taylor's administrative assistant, Laura Freddy, became her big sister and provided her guidance and encouragement and love. 2 years later, she's now a freshman in high school, or was a freshman in high school last year, and taking honors classes. And I asked Laura how she's doing this year in the sophomore year. Laura said her report card's filled with A+. Now here's a girl that went from not having much opportunity in life to one who everything is possible now because she's got a chance to get education, a chance to get a better job and a better opportunity in life. Now, right at this very instant, there are 5,000 children in the schools in the greater Fort Wayne area who are subject to falling through some classes. They're not getting along in elementary school. They perhaps will be high school dropouts. But there's an easy way to help. If you could talk to all of your friends and ask them if they'd be willing to do just 1 hour a week. All it takes is 1 little hour a week. If you can do that, if you could talk to your churches, there are many retired people in churches. If they could start spending an hour a week in helping, you can find out many ways. It could be through Big Brothers with Study Connection, with Big Brother, Big Sisters, and with Lunch Buddies. It could be through Study Connection. You heard such a wonderful program. Check United Way. They have the Reads program, a number of other programs, but there's a lot of ways, but it's amazing what just 1 hour a week can do. Well, in closing, Fort Wayne is really a great place to live. And the reason I know that is because being CEO of HWI for a lot of years, being on the national board of Big Brother, Big Sister America, I had a chance to travel. I've probably been in every major city in the United States. But you know something? Not a single one of them comes anywhere close to be caring like you folks are in Fort Wayne. They be caring. And one classic example and proof of that, the local Big Brother, Big Sister program in Fort Wayne is serving more children than Cincinnati, Indianapolis, or Chicago. Can you believe that? That's because all of you are involved. That's it. That's because all of you are involved. So that's the number one reason Fort Wayne's great. The second reason Fort Wayne's great is you're all nice people, just like all of you. Nice being here today. Thank you very much, and God bless all of you.
How could you ever fail with a cheerleader like that? One more hand for Don Wolf, please. Thanks again for joining us today. We've left you on your tables some Don Wolfisms of your own that you can take with you. Please do, and keep passing that torch along. Thanks again for being with us today.